Great job, girls. It's actually our 10th year, but our 9th graduation. And so that's something we do every year. We just never change the song because it's a nice way to start. We think that gives a little waking up music, right? You know, this is fun. Actually, we only have 8 graduates this year, as you can probably tell. So that makes our crowd a little smaller, and I can see that I know most of you in the crowd, which makes it kind of fun because usually it's a really stiff crowd. Usually people coming from all over the place and nobody knows each other. So I'm going to make an executive decision here because it's our 10th birthday to change things up a little bit as I please. Because we only have 8 graduates, and one of the beauties of Grace Prep is that we can do personal things, individual things, not go by the regular customs. We want to be honorable and take this day with formality, but I was thinking that you can almost hear from every one of these 8 kids. You're going to hear from 2 or 3 of them tonight in regular schedule, but I may call on any one of you tonight for you to give a 2-minute elevator speech, right? You know what an elevator speech is? Elevator speech. It's, you know, in business we call that the presentation you have to make if you meet somebody on the elevator before you get to the 10th floor or so, right? So they've been learning that, so we're going to try that out, all right? Keep it shorter, I'll throw you right off the stage, you know what I'm saying? All right. I don't want anybody bored tonight, we're going to keep it moving. It is our 10th year, and it's fun to be here. 10 years ago, I won't tell the whole story, but in April, I woke up in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning, and to this day, I'm not sure exactly what happened, because as we go further and further, and I see how God's using the school, I wonder what that night was really like. But I wrote an email to my friends saying, if I start a school, this is what I believe. And they became the 40 Points of Grace, just as I wrote them that night. And I've found that to the extent that we followed those and kept to our guns on those, that we've done extraordinary things if we're willing to have the courage to do what God called us to do. And the things that we do, that we jump off the cliff on, have been the things that have impacted the kids' lives the most. This is not an easy program. There's nowhere to hide. Their senior projects, as you'll hear tonight, are extremely sophisticated. We have professors come from the university that say these are like master's level projects. They are put under extreme pressure. Pressure unlike they probably have at most other times in their lives. We kind of create it that way. So when they get done the senior project, they can say they really accomplished something, right? You really accomplished something. Pressure under there, right? All right. But after 10 years, I remember a couple of stories. One is, a few years ago, we had a girl named Nadia Webb. And she came to us, and after a few months, she had, Anna, what's the story there? What did she have on her? Tumors on her throat, her esophagus. And she'd already had one operation to get it removed, and she was coming back for prayer at school because they're going to take the second operation, and if it didn't go well, they're going to take her esophagus, put a voice box in there. So it was obviously a critical thing for a 14-year-old, and so the kids and Dana decided to fast, and so we had a 30-day fast, which to tell you the truth, I was like, oh man, how's this going to work? We're going to fast for 30 days, and at the end of it, she goes back, if nothing happens, you know, what do we say? Well, what we'd say is, we don't know what happens, right? That's what we'd say. And so we prayed for 30 days. And I'm a skeptic at most times. And Nadia went down to St. John's in Philadelphia. And we sent Justine Adelman with her, or she went with her. And I was just wondering what would happen. And Justine, when she came back, said, I was there when the doctors came in, they just dropped their jaws. Because not only wasn't there a tumor anymore on her throat, but there wasn't any scars from the one before.
Hallelujah.
That's how God heals. That's how God heals. What we want to do at Grace Prep is tell the truth the way it's meant to be told. I don't like when people are healed and they're only halfway healed. I think when God heals you, He heals you with His power. We've seen tremendous things at Grace Prep, and many of you have been a part of that. I want to talk to the graduates now, just for a few minutes, about something that I want to send with you. It's about death, and it's about the last question of John the Baptist. Okay, I've never worn glasses in front before, so I can see how you got to take them on and off. I can't see them when they're on, I can't see the people when they're off, so. And John the Baptist had one question going through his mind at the end of his life. I'll tell you a little bit about that later. But I have a confession to make to you. You know, as the head of a Christian ministry and with a wife that's an author and speaker, people at times look too much to us to be the carrier of the flame. And I have a confession to make. There are times when I doubt. There are times when I go home and I think, what's it all about? What about, why is this? Why is this so hard? Not the school, but just life. Why did that happen? Why did that person die or get sick? I was sitting in the podium with Paul Grable, who was one of my best friends who died a few years ago. It's just like, I think today, why did that happen, you know? There are other times I don't feel his power or his presence. Right in the midst of a room where everybody else is. And I think, man, Kim House is always feeling his presence. Sometimes I feel incredibly alone because of it. Partly because people want to not have me down as a leader. And sometimes I wonder how I can be a true believer at all. I mean, what's it all about? But in these doubts, I'm not alone. And I look to a story about John the Baptist. You may know the story of his last days, but probably not of his last question that went through his mind. A question so compelling that it gives me hope in the most difficult circumstances. So here's the basic story according to Mark 6. So Herodias was Herod's wife. She was a real wretched thing. Do not marry a person like Herodias, okay? She was married to Herod's brother, blah, blah, blah. She hated John and wanted to kill him out of revenge for him criticizing their marriage. So Herod sent soldiers to arrest John and put him in prison. But Herod respected John. The verse 6:20 says, and Herod respected John, and knowing that he was a good and holy man, so he kept him under his protection. Herod was disturbed whenever he talked with John, but even so, he liked to listen to him. So on Herod's birthday, he threw a big party. His daughter came and danced for him. Her name was Herodias too, which I'm sure was just a pain around the house, having mother and daughter named the same thing. But he was so impressed with the way she danced that he said he'd give her anything she wanted. She went back to her mother, and her mother said, hey, ask for John the Baptist's head on a silver platter. Literally. We kind of use that now, but that was a literal thing. I think that's where it started, right, Samantha? So it says then in verse 26, it says, then the king was very sorry, but he was embarrassed to break his oath in front of his guests. So the executioner cut off John's head, put it on a tray, and gave it to her. Kind of summarize the last sentence. And the word sorry here is the word, the same word that they used for Christ's grief in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's overwhelming grief. You know, John was not just a good man. He was not just a good man. He was the forerunner of Christ. He was sent to herald the ministry of Jesus. His birth was foretold by the angel Gabriel. And if any of you have had any of these things, just give me a shout, because I'd be really impressed, okay? So Gabriel foretold John the Baptist's birth 3 months before he was born. He leapt in his mother's womb when he heard Mary's voice, and he baptized Jesus. That's what makes John's final question be so compelling, so incredible. It's in Matthew 9:11. Here's what it says. John the Baptist, who is now in prison, heard about all the things the Messiah was doing. Heard about all the things the Messiah was doing. So he sent his disciples to ask Jesus this question. Are you really the Messiah we've been waiting for? Or should we keep looking for someone else? So after his whole life, he's in this filthy prison, ready to die. What does he ask? Was this all worth it? Can you go ask him if I followed the right guy? I can identify with that. And it puts me in better company. If John doubted, you will too. You'll have doubts. Francis Bacon said, and by the way, anyone with the last name of Bacon should be worth listening to. Come on, that was, I prepared. That wasn't even, wow, okay, we're going to get there. Let me try that again. Francis Bacon said, and anyone with the last name of Bacon is worth listening to. If I was a good speaker, that's what I get. He says, if we begin with certainties, we shall end in doubt. But if we begin with doubts, and we are patient in them, we shall end in certainties. Certainties are hard to come by. I grew up in a church that accepted no doubts. It was obvious that Billy Graham, James Dobson, and every member of the other church's softball team were going straight to hell. There's no question about that. It was easy. Life was easy. Religion was easy. It was do's and don'ts, and we all knew that everybody in the building was probably going to be okay if you did the right thing, but everybody outside the building was in deep trouble. My certainties became more uncertain as they did. The foundations of my faith wobbled. And then, when my leaps of faith, still to this day, when I take leaps of faith and they don't work out as I expected, it shakes me. Because then you start to think, what could I leap off the cliff for? What if I just leap once and it's just totally wrong? So when I doubt, I sometimes act sort of ironically like the heroes of the faith, like Abraham and Moses and Elijah, and just about all of them, when they doubted God. Listen to me, what I desired to do in my own life, what I desire for you to do, is what John the Baptist did, which is ask God directly. Confront doubt. Don't let it simmer and fester. Confront doubt. Everybody in here has doubt, but very few places to share it. And I'm hoping over the last 1, 2, or 4 years, whatever, you've been able to confront doubt. And that you'll be able to always confront doubt with us in the future, because it will come. And it won't necessarily come during the good times, it'll come during the hard times, like John the Baptist. Share your doubts with God and to those who know God well. John wasn't afraid to ask the hard question, and Jesus wasn't offended by it. Think about it. So you're the forerunner of Christ, blah, 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 and then you're in prison, you're going to be a hero, and Jesus is like, hey, this guy really follows me, and then all of a sudden he's like, what? That's John's question, really? After all this? Like, what do I have to do? Raise people from the dead? Like, I think, I've shown my works, right? And that's what you could be worried about Jesus saying, I suppose. This is very interesting to me. Here's how Jesus responded. He actually responded with a coded message. A coded message. He said, go back to John and tell him about what you've heard and seen. The blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised to life, and the good news is being preached to the poor. And tell him, God blesses those who are not offended by me. He spoke in a language that John would recognize, but that Herod wouldn't, because he spoke in Scripture. He was quoting the prophecy of Isaiah 35, because he knew John would know that. And the prophecy says in Isaiah, this news will strengthen those who have tired hands and encourage those who have weak knees. Kind of like you, John the Baptist. Do you get that? He said in Isaiah, say to those who are afraid, be strong and do not fear, for your God is coming to destroy your enemies. He is coming to save you. And here's the deal. And when he comes, he will open the eyes of the blind and unstop the ears of the deaf. The lame will leap like a deer, and those who cannot speak will shout and sing. He knew John the Baptist would know, because John the Baptist was saying, I've seen these things. Is it really you? And Jesus was saying, it is me. It is me. And thanks for asking. I don't know if you guys said that, so I don't want to put words in God's mouth, because that would... John the Baptist didn't retreat from doubt. He charged headlong into doubt. He asked God directly about his deepest questions. Don't be afraid of the questions, and don't be afraid of the answers. C.S. Lewis said, if ours is an examined faith, we should be unafraid to doubt. If doubt is eventually justified, we were believing what clearly was not worth believing. But if doubt is answered, our faith has grown. And I can tell you this, doubt is the bridge between unbelief and faith. And we all walk on it. And we all walk back and forth on it. In my life, it is only in the quicksand of these doubts that I finally reach my hand up and realize that there's only one person who's going to rescue me. That stirs my faith like it did John's. Seniors, we have offered you more questions than answers. And that was by design, because we want you to know that when you meet a pastor, a theologian, or a mentor that has all the answers, run quickly. There's no one more dangerous than somebody that has all the theological answers. We were open about the complex questions we had no answers for, so that you could trust our answers to the most important questions. We've taught you an intelligent faith. We've taught you about a walk with Jesus that is simple, graceful, and true. So as it says on our shield, remain faithful to the things you've been taught, because you can trust those who taught you.